First question this side. Phil, it seems like you're in the finals every year, but you've never coached in an NBA Finals Game 7. Does this feel like a normal finals game to you? Are you nervous, excited, or talk about the anticipation of this game?
Yeah, I'm keyed up. I mean, I think it's natural to be keyed up, but I think every final game, has its own level. But I don't think it's any more than normal about a game that's as much importance as this has.
Is this you keyed up?
Yeah, keyed up.
Mike in the front. Phil, how much realistically can you expect out of Andrew? And what's going to happen with the matchups if he has to go up against Rasheed?
Well, matchups could be difficult, depending upon whether they start Rasheed or Davis. Makes two different things happen. Andrew, I think, can play 10 minutes a half. That's kind of what our training staff has said, unless he has a landing or a turn or something that ends up irritating that particular part of his knee that has some loose tissue, and then he gets, of course, lack of function in the muscles. So that could be it. I think that'll all depend upon his transition as those two get up and down the court.
Steve?
A bit of a follow-up on that first question. You have been here so many times. You've won more NBA titles than anyone else. Sort of, if you can delve a little deeply into yourself, what goes through your heart and mind right now? I mean, when you say you're keyed up, and you just say it so matter-of-factly, it doesn't seem like you are, but what's going through your heart and mind right now?
Where the level of coaching where you like what to anticipate, trying to get to the point where you read what your opponent's going to do is always a key. Trying to have the key about where's the surprise going to come from, how to anticipate what's going to happen. Those are always important things. And then as a coach, trying to ready your team so they're ready to play the kind of game that they have to play in this situation, which is, we always talk about basic basketball, but it's basic basketball with really a lot of impact and a lot of a notion of really high energized game. So playing with great intensity and yet not out of character is really an important part for a coach.
When you talked about anticipating surprise, I mean, so you look at potential scenarios constantly, things that could catch you off guard?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you try to be prepared. I mean, this team, I think, could actually scale down. They played Robinson and Rondo together. They could scale down and move down notches. Maybe put Pierce in a small power forward spot, and Tony Allen in small forward. They'll try to really activate the game. They'll have to play a different type of game tonight than they played before.
On that side?
Coach, not to speed up the process at all, but how much it goes through your mind and body right now of potentially this being your final game coaching?
I've resisted thinking about that and talking about it for the most part. It really isn't important about what happens after this. It's just about this game right now. So I kind of resist those thoughts.
Do the results have any bearing on what your decision will be?
I won't know that until the night's finished. Then I'll know how I feel about it.
I'm not sure I understand that.
No, I'll know after the game's over.
You'll tell us that.
No, I won't tell you that. That's for sure.
Any other questions? In the back, Steve?
With both teams having logged over 100 games in 9 months from when you began, how much of what we see at this time of year is affected by when we're seeing it, coming so late from when both sides began?
110 games, 113 games, whatever it is that we're playing tonight on the 14th game. There's so much rote involved in what we do, from the start of training camp till now. You just hope that that's imprinted in these players so that they can do those things. But yet the fatigue factor is so great that these players have to play through with the amount of energy that carries them in this thing, the adrenaline run. I think we saw that, adrenaline run out in the second half of the game the other night, on Tuesday night, in both teams, as a matter of fact, because this is really a straining point. I can remember, once Bill Bradley wrote a book, Life on the Run, and document like 27 various injuries he had by the time the season was at this particular point in the finals, you know. And that's what's kind of going through these guys as far as the fatigue in the season. So, but they're going to go out there and forget all about that and just play. It's going to be an adrenaline rush that pushes them through it.
Back left.
Yeah, Phil, over here. This being a new experience for everyone, do you have any idea how your team's going to respond?
No, you really don't. I think they're going to be very amped up. I know that. But you know, whether that high intensity makes shots go in, or whether it's going to, it's all about putting that ball in the basket and defending at the other end. I know they're going to react, and that's one thing I'm happy about.
So, have any characters from your past, former players, former coaches, reached out to you in the last couple of days to talk about this Game 7?
No.
Again, right in the front.
I could say Luke Longley, but I mean, that is the only one. It's on the other side of the world. He can only approach me that way.
Coach, allow me to paraphrase the early questions. This is your 13th NBA Finals as a head coach. Does unlucky number 13 become lucky number 7, given this is a Game 7?
I haven't thought about it that way. That's a good perspective. We'll talk about that afterwards.
Okay. Thanks.
Mark in the back.
So at the start of the season, you were talking about the difficulty of repeating and how long the road would be. Is it what you thought it would be or more?
No, I think this is fully anticipated that it should be tough, and it is. And yet, we've had our really high moments in this playoff run. We felt really good about ourselves. And we've had a couple games where we felt like we weren't up to par, up to what we have to be a champion, and we had to reassert our feeling as champions. And so this is the night that caps all that off.
Bill, in the games where it's not quite working for you guys, coaches kind of rush aside on the alternate explanations and say, we just need to execute. But the deeper question is, why isn't the execution there tonight? So in your role as an amateur psychologist, more than an amateur psychologist, what's the difference in a game where it's working and where it's not?
It's recognition. A lot of it's about recognition at a moment. We always call it the moment of truth. There's multiple moments of truth in a game. There's usually one that really kind of spells what this game is going to be like, or a moment that changes kind of the course. But there's a moment of truth when the ball comes up, the players recognize what they have to do. Whether they're going to initiate an action that's we call automatics, or whether they're going to go into a rote memorization type of thing, that they get into a comfort zone. What we've been trying to push them through in this whole series is that you can't do that with the Celtics. You can't go to a comfort zone and just go play basketball as you would maybe in a practice that's the fourth day after you played 3 consecutive games or 3 out of 4 nights. You have to do something special. There has to be some activity that's well thought out, and there's a moment of truth in which you have to do that. We've had multiple situations which we did that the other night. We had many situations we didn't do that in Boston in games number 4 and 5.
Bill, if you don't come back, this could be your last pre-game press conference ever. Have you dealt with that emotionally yet?
Well, someone mentioned that I maybe would never have to speak to you again after this night. I said it never would happen that way. That one couldn't be that fortunate.
No.
Anyone else? All right, next coach.